I've given lots and lots and lots of instructions on how to make the mind peaceful and how to bring it to a state of stillness. And the sorts of strategies which I have described are not just for meditation, they also work for your daily life as well. Little things like being in the present moment and being kind. If anybody wants to have a very simple philosophy for life, you can't go past that story I did in the opening the door of your heart of the Emperor's 3 questions. I use that for meditation, I use that for life. The Emperor's 3 questions. An emperor who was fed up with organized religion. Basically, people always arguing with each other, always saying who's got the truth and who's right and who's wrong. And instead of following one particular religion, he decided to make up his own and to find out the 3 most important questions in life. And that became his religion, the Emperor's 3 questions. The first question, when is the most important time? Who is the most important person? And what is the most important thing to do? And of course, when is the most important time? It's always now. It's the only time we ever have. That's why during this retreat, hopefully you've been practicing that now is the most important time, and that you haven't even packed your bags yet, and you haven't even decided what you're going to do this afternoon. How many people have already packed your bags? What do you do that for? You're hours in front of yourself. You might die at lunchtime, so all that packing has been a total waste of time. So have you ever noticed that, just how we're always preparing ourselves for some future? We're never really here. We're always ahead of ourselves. So much so that, even some people, they prepay their funerals for themselves. They already choose their coffin, even though they haven't died yet. It's crazy stuff, isn't it? So anyway, try and live as much as possible in the present moment. Enjoy your life while it's still here. Because you know how quickly time goes. And you know that sometimes people say at this time of the retreat, just 8-9 days have gone so quickly. They go even faster if you live in the future. You're never even here. So hopefully during this retreat you've learned how to stop all this planning for the future and running ahead of yourself, and just to live more in the present moment, to enjoy the place. And if you haven't done that yet, please make the best use of the last remaining hours. Please get your money's worth. Squeeze every cent out of any money you've paid here so you can enjoy every moment of this retreat. Because soon you'll be back in the grind. So now you're free. Enjoy it. It's really strange, as I think I mentioned before. Before you come on retreat, you're planning to come here. And as soon as you're here, you're planning to leave. This seems to be our life. We're never actually where we are. We're always planning to go on to the next destination. So see if you can stop. And now is the most important time. Please enjoy it. If you're having a cup of tea, please enjoy every sip from that tea. If you're just sitting just on the veranda, just looking at the trees, enjoy every moment. You have nothing to do, nowhere to go, so please be here. So hopefully during this retreat you've learned how important it is to be here. Not only for meditation, but just for life. And the next question, who is the most important person, was another part of mindfulness. The most important person is the one right in front of you. It's a very beautiful answer, because I always thought maybe I'm the most important person, or God is the most important, or someone is the most important person. But when it said the person right in front of you is the most important person, that means that in your life, if you go home and see your partner, you see your little kid, or you see just a postman who comes to knock on the door, if they're right in front of you, they become the most important person in the world. And I try to practice that on this retreat. When you come for your interviews, I've really looked at you, listened to you, as if you're the only person in the world and the most important one. And if I have done that, you know that that's how you can connect with people. That is actually how you can build up a relationship. The worst thing in life is if you talk to somebody and they're trying to get rid of you. They're not really listening. They say, go, 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 I've got more important things to do than to listen to you. And that really is a terrible experience to have when you feel that you're not really important, you're rejected, they're not giving you any value. So never do that to anybody else. Whoever it is who you talk to, it may be just a person who's checking you in at the airport. When they're checking you in, they're the most important person in the world for you. So pay attention to them. It's always putting you in the moment. And of course, much of your life is spent by yourself. You've had your own rooms here. You spent so much time in solitude when you were the most important person, because you were right in front of you. And it's good to give yourself that importance, because sometimes we sacrifice ourselves in life. We're always doing things for others and never really looking after ourselves, which means that soon we get sort of burnt out, we get tired. There's nothing in life for us. So remember, much of your life is by yourself. The first person I always see when I wake up in the morning is me. And I do this, I've maybe trained myself. When I go to bed at night, the last person I see is me. And I say, good night, me. Have a good night. See you in the morning. I say good night to myself. And when I wake up in the morning, good morning, me. Here I am again. Have a great day. Why not? Give that a try. And you will find that that means you are giving yourself importance. You say that to somebody else, why not say it to yourself as well, to treat yourself as you treat others? And the last question is, what's the most important thing to do? Is to care. It's a very beautiful word, to care. Halfway between caring and being careful is to care, and to care for yourself. And I'm sure I said that story early on in this retreat of the young man who became a doctor, who thought that the purpose of his life is to cure patients. And I told him, no, that's not your purpose, because you'll always fail when people die. Your job is to care for them. And by caring for his patients, you probably cure more people. And those who die will know they've been cared for, which is the most important thing in the world. So in your meditation, don't try and cure your defilements. Don't try and get rid of all those stray thoughts, that tiredness, that stupidity. Don't be a doctor who tries to cure yourself. Your job is to care for yourself, as I've been teaching all week. Open the door of your heart to yourself. Be kind to the monsters who come into your life, into your mind. To care. Don't try and cure. Those are the Emperor's 3 questions and their answers, and it gives a very wonderful guideline for meditation and for life. So what you actually do here is not just for Jhana growth. When you ask, what should I do when I get home? Now the most important time. See how much you can practice that at work, in the traffic. You're stuck in a traffic jam somewhere. Now is the most important time. Enjoy this moment, instead of worrying about being late in the future. Don't know if I told that story of that man. He came and told me this story personally up in the dining hall at Bodhinyana some years ago. He was late for getting to the airport. He was a businessman doing some business up in Mumbai. He checked out of the hotel, he ordered a taxi, the taxi was waiting for him, but the taxi got lost on the way to the airport. Totally lost. And he was getting more and more angry. At least the taxi driver should know the way from a major hotel to the international airport in Mumbai. But he was getting lost and driving around in circles, and the clock was ticking, and it was looking more and more likely that he would miss his flight. And he had one hope left, which was the flight might be delayed, which many flights were at that airport. But when they finally found the airport and they approached, he realized that for once the flight was not delayed, because he saw it take off. He saw it lift off. He could notice the markings on the tail. That was his flight. He should have been on. And he missed it. And he was so angry at the taxi driver. You stupid taxi driver, you made me miss my flight. And I don't know how that's going to be. All my connections are really up in the air, you stupid taxi driver. And as he was complaining to the taxi driver, that's when he saw his flight fall to the ground, crash with everybody on board killed. Thank you, taxi driver. You're the most wonderful taxi driver in the whole world. I love you. Take a couple of $1,000. Oh, you're great. And that changed his whole life, he told me, that one experience. He was always worried about the future, and who knows what the future might be. For him, if he'd been on time, he'd have been on that flight and he would not be here. He would have been killed too. So it's lovely being in the present moment, enjoying this moment, and not getting angry at it, because we don't know how the future's going to evolve. So don't get upset. Don't worry. Don't be afraid. You don't know what's going to happen. So be in this present moment. You do that here. You're practicing that in this retreat, and you find you'll be much easier to be in the present moment when you get home. Or when you get at work. You know what it's like sometimes you have a huge amount of work to do. And I know what that feels like because I have many responsibilities. But when I do any work, I just one thing at a time. This is what I've got to do, and I do this. And if we have one of those books which will be on sale this afternoon, some quotes from me. One of the quotes in that book is from me. It says that a busy person is not someone who has lots of work to do. A busy person is someone who does too much at the same time. That's a busy person. They're carrying too many burdens all at once. Not only do they look busy and they stress themselves out, but also they're not very efficient. So sometimes you do one thing at a time, and it's amazing how much you can get done. You just don't look busy, but you get more work done because you do one thing at a time, always in this moment. And I remember, because I have to do a lot of arranging with builders. I remember one builder, he was a bricklayer, and he told me this story. He was actually a builder, not the bricklayer. He was building some big mansion in Sydney, and it was a very good contract because the owner was some very wealthy person and said, look, I don't care what the price is. I want the best plumbers, the best electricians, the best carpenters, the best bricklayers. I don't mind paying extra because this is my house, my mansion. I want it to be absolutely top quality. And then one day when the client, this wealthy man, just came to check on his mansion, he noticed this maybe 17 or 18-year-old kid doing the brickwork. And he went straight to the builder and complained. He said, look, I wanted craftspeople, people who know what they're doing, not some apprentice. This young guy, get him off my building. And that's when the builder said, come and have a look at this young guy. And this young guy didn't look like he was doing much work. But when you counted the bricks, he was laying those bricks much faster than any of the old bricklayers. He had this incredibly beautiful rhythm, one brick at a time, and every brick was perfect. It was just flowing effortlessly. And when the owner saw that, or the client saw it, said, wonderful, great, I never realized that. Because he didn't look busy, he thought he was being lazy. But when it was effortless, one brick at a time, it flowed so wonderfully. He was an excellent bricklayer, even though he's only 17 or 18 years of age. It's just like when you are in the moment, you don't look like you're doing much work. But my goodness, you get so much done. You learn that on this retreat. And it works when you go back to your office, except you do get lots of work done, but when your boss comes along, Just play. Do many things at the same time, because otherwise they think you're lazy and they're going to sack you. Just pretend when they're there, just many things, and look busy. And when they're gone, you can go back to normal and get more work done. It's so true that when you actually do one thing at a time, you can get an enormous amount of work done. You're in the present moment, and the job in front of you is the most important. Nothing else counts. And you learn that in this meditation. It's called focusing, whether it's on the breathing, whether it's on a nimitta, or just watching your feet when you're walking. This is the most important thing. You learn how to focus on one thing. And all the other things which you have to do later on, you leave them to later on. You're actually learning how to focus with this meditation. My goodness, that really helps your work. You become far more efficient. I know I recently went to Korea, and one of the major companies in Korea, Samsung, the people who run that company or own it are all Buddhists, and they insist that everybody who works for that company, there's about 220,000 employees, all have to meditate, whether they're Buddhist or not. That's company policy. And you can understand why. Because it lessens stress, and basically you get more work out of your employees with less arguments, because they're focused. It's just basic training. And every year when I go to Thailand, and as I'm going again in July, I'm always invited to give a talk at the Oriental Hotel. This is not a 5-star, this is a 6-star hotel. I don't get to stay there except to have lunch in one of the rooms there, this is really a fancy hotel, the Oriental. And some years ago, I was on the aircraft and reading an article about it, because it had been awarded the prize for the top hotel in the world, beating all the other 6-star hotels. And they interviewed the manager. How come that your hotel had won the award this year for the top hotel in the world? What did you do which was different than all the other hotels? You know what the manager said they did? Said every year we send every employee, not at the same time obviously, we send them to a Buddhist retreat to do some meditation for 6 days at the company's expense. And they said, what do you do that for? No, they're not working. He said, but when I send them on this retreat, they take less sick leave, there's less, office politics. They're far more sensitive to our clients, the people we're housing. They're happier, healthier. It's just good business policy. He said that was one of the main reasons why we won the award this last year. It was the best hotel in the world. I wish I'd have kept a copy of that article to give to you, to send to your big bosses, to say, next time there's a retreat, you should pay me for this, to go to Jhana Grove. And you can send everyone else here as well. Because it does actually work. What you learn on a retreat enhances your life in business, and also, your life in your family. Now is the most important time. The one in front of you is the most important person. How many of you in your family life, when you see your partner, you feel they're not really giving you that importance? They're taking you for granted. Oh, it's only her, I can talk to her later. Oh, it's only my husband, he goes off again. You don't really give him that importance, and they don't give you importance. You know what that feels like? There's no connection there at all. Amazing thing it would be if whoever you're living with, if when you're in front of them, you remember this person is the most important person in the world. And they feel that. You'll find the relationship will be enhanced enormously. They will feel they're important, they're being valued, and communication will happen. So, giving importance to the moment. In meditation it works, And it works in life as well. And of course the last thing about caring. We're always such doers, curing things, changing things, but we never care enough for one another. Isn't that the case, that when you have a relationship with somebody, the thing you want most of all is to be cared for? And this is what we learn here. You learn how to care for your mind, not to control it. If you're a control freak in the office, if you're a control freak in your house, you have a terrible time. But if you're a carer, not a controller, you just open the door of your heart to these moments, rather than always trying to change them. You have a far more peaceful, happy relationship at home, and a far better relationship in the office. You find that you can get more done. Every year I go to Curtin University to teach at the business school. Every time you go overseas, you always give some talk in some sort of business school or business meeting. And sometimes you wonder why. Look, I'm a Buddhist monk, I don't have any money, we don't do business. But we still run a very successful organization. Buddhist Society of Western Australia, Jhana Grove, Bodhinyana Monastery. It's pretty successful because we do it according to these principles. The principles you learn in meditation, you take over to the committee meetings and everything else. Now's the most important time. The most important thing to do is to care, the one in front of you, the most important person. These are skills which are not just for your enlightenment. They work in daily life as well. And little other things like for your health, the ability just to be aware and kind to something. I often tell, there's so many stories about how meditation can heal things. Again, I can't remember the stories I told on the first day, but I think I did tell the story, the guy who came in with psoriasis. And I told the story of the guy who was breathing very heavily because he had nasal cancer. Yes, okay. Some of you were asleep when I was giving my talks. Not paying any attention, never mind. But I don't know if I told maybe a personal story of when I had the food poisoning. Didn't tell that story. That was about sort of 20 months ago, not the last rains retreat, the rains retreat before. Because you know that people bring food. You have food brought to you, we have food brought to us every day. And we don't know where that food comes from sometimes. And so there's so much food, and maybe it was cooked the night before and it wasn't properly kept warm. And so every now and again we do get stomach problems. And sometimes those are quite severe, like food poisoning. It's what I keep calling an occupational hazard for a monk, because you don't make your own food. And it was one of the worst tummy aches I'd ever had. It was food poisoning. And you know what it's like to have food poisoning? Your intestines and guts and tummy are just got terrible cramps and you can't stop it and it's enormous pain. And I think that was the only time in the last 3 or 4 years I just no way could I eat. So I was up in my cave, just literally rolling on the floor, holding my tummy. And of course, you think you should have really called a doctor and gone into hospital or something, but it's just too much of a bother to call a doctor. And anyway, you've got your own ways of dealing with these things. And so what I did, and I love telling the story because it was amazing, even though I've done this many times, every time you do it, it really impresses you with the power of the mind. So instead of getting negative towards this pain, I was just mindful of it, just aware of the feeling of cramps and agony in your tummy, but not just being aware of it, being kind to it. Always have those two things coming together, awareness and compassion. And so I was kind to my guts. And I knew I was kind because I could see through the mindfulness the pain getting slightly less, only a tiny bit less. I knew I was going in the correct direction, just like that story of being up in the mountain, following the water as it goes down. My mindfulness was giving me feedback. So I could see how the pain was progressing. It was getting worse or getting better. And of course, every time you give real kindness, the pain gets less. More kindness gets less. More kindness gets less. It took 20 minutes, that's all. And at the end of 20 minutes of kindness, there was no pain left at all. Got up, there's not even an ache in there. It was just my guts, my tummy felt just totally normal. And I just got up and just carried on with what I usually was doing that day. And never came back again. Now, I know that food poisoning is some sort of bacteria or virus making havoc in your guts. I don't know what happened to the bacteria or virus, but certainly it was no symptoms left at all. Just 20 minutes of mindfulness together with kindness. Just like I said with the demon who came into the emperor's palace. Get out of here, you don't belong. I don't want this ache, this pain, this agony. Get out of here. And of course it gets worse. Mindful and kindness, welcome. Food poisoning. And of course you do that because you've got no choice. And it gets less, and it actually works. And it's great being a monk who's done this for such a long time. You know it works, you know how to do it. So you don't really be afraid of any pain anymore. You know exactly what you need to do, and you know it's going to work. Just be mindful and be kind. What an incredible thing you learn on this retreat. How to deal with pain when there's no painkiller, you're far away from a doctor or from an ambulance. And you can just be aware of the sensations in your body, be kind to them. My goodness, they just vanish. So these are what you're learning here. Powerful, powerful techniques. So it's not just about learning about the meaning of life, learning how to get jhanas and learning how to be a soul one and all this other stuff. Yeah, that happens too, but some of the free gifts in the cornflake packet. You know, I say that because you eat the cornflakes or the cereals, you know, for the breakfast, but you always get these free gifts in it every now and again. These are the free gifts for meditation. The amazing little extras which you never expect, but which have a huge impact on your daily life. In fact, I always remember this young girl from Penang who keeps coming on my retreats. And she said the first time she heard that story of the Emperor's 3 rings, now is the most important time. The one you're with is the most important person. The most important thing to do is to care. It totally changed her life. She was in an IT company and she used that for 1 whole year. And at the end of the year, she got this incredible promotion above all her colleagues who'd been working in the company much longer, because they recognized that she was an amazing worker. She said, that's all I did. And I remember another story of, I said I love invitations to things I'd never been to before. And I got this invitation through the post to go to an educational seminar, I think in the northwest region of Western Australia or something. They invited me to give a keynote speech at this education seminar in front of the State Minister of Education. And it was a keynote, you know, not just an ordinary speech. And I thought, why the heck did they invite me? And of course, you know, I didn't know who to ask, but I said, I'm coming. And I came there, and I was met at the entrance by this woman. And again, she said that old question, do you remember me? And I said, of course I don't. But you know, she was gracious enough to laugh. And she said about 3 years earlier, I gave her talk on just Buddhism at the primary school. It was in Kelmscott, where she was a principal. And that one story, the Emperor's 3 questions, had impressed her so much that that night, after my talk, she sent in her letter of resignation. Because there was something she always wanted to do. Now is the most important time, so now was the most important time. She resigned that evening. And she got funding from the Department of Education to start a program for the kids who weren't in school, the ones who were living on the streets, the underage prostitutes, the people who could not get into school. And those Emperor's Three Questions was the essence, the philosophy behind her program. And she sold it to the Department of Education, got some funding. The first thing she did was to go late at night under the bridges or round the back of restaurants or places where these street kids would hang out. And the first thing, to talk with them. And the only way she could communicate with these kids, this was an adult, someone from the establishment, and these were kids who were afraid. She said, Emperor's Three Questions. That street kid in front of me, that underage teenage prostitute, she was the most important person in the whole world for me. And I'm not going to try and cure her or criticize her. I'm going to care for her. And with that philosophy, she told me, she connected with these rejects from the school system and found out what they wanted and what would get them back into the school system. And from that research, she went back to the Department of Education, had this program, and got these kids back into school. Amazingly successful. It was tailored to them because she could actually talk to them. Lines of communication were open where these kids would not talk to anyone except each other through those Emperor's Three Questions. And that's why she wanted me to give the keynote address. But I always remember this. I never did give the keynote address. I gave my speech. But the keynote was this kid who came up who was 17. And he told his story. The usual parental abuse, sexually abused by his father or something, running away because he just couldn't face another day in his house, living on the streets, hand to mouth. And then this woman came up, the first person who listened to him. And he felt he was cared for. And then he said, going to this place where there was no sense of discipline, he had to do this, had to do that. He was cared for, encouraged, learning at his own pace. And then he said he'd just been accepted to UWA for university. And that just made me go all emotional. He got the prize for the keynote address. A kid whose life was being wasted on the streets, who managed through this program to get his life back on track and go to university. He had a life. Thanks to this program. Thanks to the Emperor's Three Questions. That's why she wanted me to go to that seminar. Simple things like that change people's lives. It's really powerful. And it does not need to be complicated. Throughout this whole retreat, I try to keep it simple, not complicated. Because when it's really complicated, it may sound profound, but doesn't really have much of an effect. Keep it simple, and it can really change people's lives. And you can say the Emperor's Three Questions, but you're learning them here. You're actually doing it. Now's the most important time. The one in front of you is the most important, and to care. You do that to yourself as well. And you change your own life. For most of this retreat, the only person in front of you is yourself. You've got your eyes closed, it's just me in front of me. And I told you to please give yourself importance and to care for you. So don't try and just put yourself down. I haven't got jhana yet. I haven't got nimittas. I can't even watch the breath. That is not the point of this retreat. The point of this retreat is learn how to make peace, be kind and be gentle. The jhanas and the enlightenment, they will come as a natural course in their due time. All I have to do here is to teach you how to be kind, how to be aware, be in the moment, make peace, be kind, be gentle, that's all. When you know how to do that, you have the tools, and you're on the bus, it's only a matter of time when these things come. And that's a beautiful thing to know and to experience. You're just sitting under the Bodhi tree and things fall into your hand. When they start falling, it just surprises you because you don't really believe it until it happens. When it happens, wow, this actually works, this is true. My goodness, here I am just sitting doing nothing and Jhana comes. Ooh, that's amazing. And I never did anything. It's not my fault. And it's not. It's just because you made peace, you've been kind, been gentle. Now is the most important time and you cared for this moment. And those qualities change your life and change other people's lives as well. Sometimes people say, oh, you're Theravada, or you're just selfish, out to make people enlightened. What about the rest of the world? And I think you can see, you know me enough now, that you don't just change yourself, you change hundreds and thousands of people. Even this morning, we were just talking at breakfast this morning. There was one guy who sent a letter to how many people? A few, 6 or 7 friends, because he was suicidal. And he thought of these friends, and the thought of the friends stopped him committing suicide. Jagannatha was one of those. They stopped people from killing themselves. What a wonderful thing that is you can do for others. To give them a life, give them a reprieve from a death sentence. And you do that as well. Your kindness, your goodness, what you learn here, whether you like it or not, you will share with other people. Because of all the brainwashing you've been enduring over the last 9 days, and it is brainwashing, the standard way of brainwashing people is to get them very calm, first of all, in meditation, and then what you put in really sticks. Number 2, you make it funny, and then that's the other trick of brainwashing. It really gets into you. Have you noticed all the advertisements on TV? They're always amusing, they're a little bit funny. That's not just to entertain you. When you're being entertained, your guard is down and the message gets in. That's why I tell jokes. It's my method of brainwashing. And it works. And you don't mind, 'cause it's a good message I'm brainwashing you on. So you do find that you're a kinder, gentler, more easy person to live with in the office, at home and everywhere else. And look, how many people do you meet just in 1 year? And every one of those people you affect. So a little bit of kindness you learn here does get spread to everybody you meet. The way you can just be peaceful and let things go. I told you all about trying to let go of the past. Don't know how many people just keep carrying the pain of the past, the disappointment, the anger, the resentment. And it is justified. People shouldn't have done that. But they do that. So what choice have you got? You can't change the behavior of the world. You can change your own behavior. You can let it go. You've got the option to do that. You can't change the past, that's not an option. But you have the option to let go of the past. You're free to do that. And when you have the courage, and it is an act of courage to let go of the past, not only are you free, but you're helping other people to also let go of the past and be free. What a wonderful world that would be. If the Arabs and Jews in Palestine and what's it called, Israel. Oh, look, let's bygones be bygones. Look, we've hurt each other enormously. Let's let it go. No more revenge, tit for tat for the past. Al-Qaeda and the US government. Okay, let's forgive each other. Ooh. Would that be possible? Why not? Wouldn't it be wonderful if you see Mullah Omar and Barack Obama giving each other a nice hug? A ridiculous idea, isn't it? Or is it? You learn forgiveness here, letting go of the past. If you can do it, maybe other people can do it. But you have to do it first. Don't expect other people to do it when you're still holding the pain of the past. As far as revenge is concerned, yeah, a lot of people have been hurt. If you really are a Buddhist, karma will sort out revenge. If you're a Christian, God will sort out revenge. He'll punish those deserving to be punished. So no one gets away with anything. You don't need to be the executioner. The job of human beings is to forgive. Karma does the punishing. So you can let it go. What a wonderful thing that is. You learn to let go of the past here. You train, because otherwise you can't get a deep meditation. You can't get any meditation. You're sitting here, nothing to do, and all these thoughts of what happened in the past comes up and stops you enjoying peace and freedom. You've experienced that too many times. Until eventually the message sinks in, I don't need to do this anymore. I can let it go. And you do let it go, out of kindness to yourself. And once you can let that past go, what a wonderful ability that is in your life. No longer do you have to suffer because of the stupidity and cruel actions of others. Why do you have to suffer for what other people did? It wasn't your fault. But we do suffer for the bad actions of others. And here, on this retreat, you learn to let it go and be free. What an incredible ability that is in your life. And you can teach it to others as well. You can be free. You can teach other people, whatever happened to you in the past, get out the toilet paper, write it down on brown paper, put it down in the toilet and do the letting go ceremony. And it's amazing when you see that happen to people who've been tortured in these countries, because that's where I've given talks before, at the Australian Society of Survivors of Torture and Trauma. And these ones have been through real hell. If you think that you've been abused and given a hard time, that's nothing compared to what some of these people describe has happened to them. And they can let it go. And that's such an inspiring thing to see. People who really have been through hell can let it go. And that's what you learn here. You learn how to let things go. So you can have a free and happy, wise life. And the last thing which I taught here, it was sometimes you think it's funny and it's a joke, but half the jokes, if not all the jokes you say here, are really serious stuff. My happiness licenses, which many of you have now got, your own personal happiness license. Why? What's that teaching you? What's that teaching you is sometimes we don't trust ourselves enough. We have to get someone in authority to give us the permission to be happy. I don't care using my authority in your confidence or respect for me, because I just want you to be free. Why not be happy? And if that's all you go away from this retreat with, your happiness license, and you take it seriously. So now, any blockage which you have to be happy because of some sort of guilt, lack of self-esteem, thinking you're not good enough, being brought up to think you're inferior, something is lacking in you, that something is wrong in you. If that can be left on this retreat in Jhana Grove, what a wonderful retreat this has been. Now you go off into life and be happy. Seems such a simple thing, but again it changes your health, changes your success, changes the way you relate to other people, changes all the people you meet with. What a wonderful thing that is. So when people ask at the end of the retreat, how do I take this back into the world? You've got no choice. You will take it back into the world. Not sitting on the cushion. You won't have so much time to sit on a chair or a cushion or do walking meditation. You have many more duties to perform. But what you've learnt on that cushion, what you've learnt on those red carpet walking meditation rooms. What you've learnt in there deserves that red carpet. You've learned the secret of how to make peace, to let things go, to be kind, to care, not to cure, to give yourself happiness, to be peaceful, be in the moment. The great secrets of happiness you've learnt. That's what you'll take back with you. And if you run out of that inspiration, that peace, that happiness, this place is always here for you to come back to next time. But please, be quick. Usually, these retreats, after 5 or 10 minutes, they're all booked out. You've got to be fast. So I wish you all happiness and peace in your life. Remember, even at home, you can always find a nice quiet place to meditate. Corner of your bedroom is one of the favorite places. Put a cushion in the corner of your bedroom. Put sort of a little Buddha statue or a print of some sunset, anything which is inspiring and peaceful, and use that as your meditation corner. And only meditate there, don't do anything else in there. Maybe listen to some talks or read some meditation books, but don't do anything else in that corner except meditate. That is your holy, sacred corner. Having a place to meditate really helps. If you can do that in your office, if you've got a big enough office, a little place to meditate, fine. If you can't find any place in your place of work, there is always the toilets. Go in the ladies' toilet, if you're a lady, men's in the men's, close the door, and you can even take a cushion in there if you wish, if the seat's a bit too hard. Sit down on there. No one will disturb you, simply because they think you're constipated. And just sit there until you're relaxed. And no one disturbs you. You're allowed to go there. So be innovative to find places you can meditate and give it importance. And please remember one of those first similes I gave. You know, how heavy is the cup? The longer you hold it, the heavier it is. If you put it down for a few minutes, when you pick it up again, it feels lighter. 15 minutes of meditation at work means 15 minutes when you're not productive at all. But it's an investment. The 15 minutes you spend relaxing is made up afterwards. Your output increases, and the quality of the work also increases. You get 3 hours work done in 2.5, which is a quarter of an hour bonus. That's actually how it works. So if you are a boss, then please, do that for yourself and encourage other people to do it too. Lessens the stress at work, gets more output, higher quality work for the people you work with and from yourself. And if you're not a boss, see if you can, next time there's a retreat, offer your boss the $225, whatever it is, to come on the next retreat. Send them here so that when you go back, they will understand why you meditate as well. So, that's enough for this morning, the last little talk. Remember, the retreat doesn't finish, it just moves to another place. There's always another retreat coming soon, at least in my life. I spent my whole life teaching retreats. If not, I taught one in Korea and now in here. Before teaching in Korea, I was teaching a retreat in Kuala Lumpur. Before Kuala Lumpur, one here. Oh gee, you just go all around the world telling the same old stories again and again and again. Recycling them. But it's good, it works, and makes people very peaceful and happy. So I hope you've enjoyed the retreat. You've cleaned up your mind, cleaned up your act, and now you have to clean up your cottage. Are there any questions before I finish off? Because there's no other opportunity for interviews or Q&A. Any questions about what I've just been saying or things which I should have said which I didn't say? Okay. This afternoon, remember, we finish off from 1:30 to 2:30 with the meditation. It's half an hour meditation just by yourself. And about 2 o'clock I go into a metta meditation, loving kindness meditation, and that's finished at 2:30 with a blessing for each one of you to end the retreat in a beautiful way. So, those of you cleaning up your huts, remember cleaning it up. Now is the most important time. The tile in front of you in the bathroom is the most important tile, and the most important thing to do is to care for it. Nice tile. I really want it to be nice and clean and beautiful. Don't rush it. Enjoy it instead. And that way you notice how meditation is in all aspects of your life. And if you do finish by 10 o'clock or wherever, you can do some more meditation. And we have the lunch at 11 o'clock. Anything else, Dania? Or?